Hello, I'm Guy Markham, and I somehow make a living by talking about motorbikes on the internet and try and make people laugh at the same time.
Welcome to the Real Riders Podcast. My name's Simon Josie, and this is a podcast about motorcycling and filmmaking. If this is your first time here, welcome and thanks for listening. As you heard, my guest for today's episode is Guy Markham, a force of nature on the internets and a relentless motorcycle enthusiast, I think it's fair to say. Guy was recently on the Trail and Adventure Motorbike podcast, Season 8, Episode 5 to be specific, which was published on the 30th of March. Make sure you go and listen to that if you haven't already. In fact, you might want to do that before you listen to the rest of this episode. I had an update from Guy a few days ago, and he told me that the two films he's been working on, centered around his visit to Slovenia during the winter, are still in post-production. But make sure you subscribe to his own YouTube channel, plus the Machine Shop's channel, so that you'll know as soon as they are published. I'll put links to both channels in the show notes. We'll get to my chat with Guy shortly. I want to do a quick news roundup. At the time of recording this, I can report that Endo Riders, the Welsh Super 10 charity fundraising ride for endometriosis UK, has raised just over £3,000. They're thrilled with this, especially given their initial fundraising target was just £500. Awesome work. You may be aware that the Adventure Motorcycle Film Festival 2027 has launched, and it's already possible to submit your film via the festival's page on FilmFreeway. I'll put links in the show notes to the festival's homepage and its page on FilmFreeway. Note that we've made some adjustments to the film submission dates for the 2027 festival, with the last day for submissions now being the 30th of October this year. The festival itself will be held at the end of February next year, 2027. One final thing, and it's related to this episode of Real Riders. During the interview recording process, some of Guy's audio was lost, and I wasn't able to edit around those missing few words, so I have used a software tool to clone Guy's voice and generate a handful of missing words in order to finish the post-production of this episode. I've been fully transparent about this with Guy and detailed the specific reconstructions with him, but I also want to be fully transparent with you about this too. Don't forget, you can find the Real Riders podcast on Instagram, where I post, amongst other things, trailers for each new episode. And if you want to know what I've been watching recently, I occasionally post about that on Bluesky. Links for both the Instagram and Bluesky accounts can be found in the show notes. Finally, if you want to help keep the servers running, pumping out the episodes, you can now support the podcast via Buy Me a Coffee donations. I have a few operational costs associated with hosting and remote recording infrastructure, and any donations go towards paying for those. The link is in the show notes and also in my Linktree, which you can find in my Instagram, Bluesky, and YouTube account profiles. Righto, let's get to my talk with Guy. Hi Guy, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me today. How are you?
No worries. Very well. Just on the road a lot as usual.
Yeah. Anything special happened in the last 24 hours?
Absolutely. I work with a group called the Machine Shop, who some of your viewers might be familiar with, and we've spent the last 6 months really pushing our YouTube. And we released a video last night. Sadly, I wasn't involved with this, but I'm part of the Machine Shop and I'm very proud of it. It's just surpassed 500,000 views already. And it's been out for a little over 24 hours. It's much more to do with the car world, but Bob, the head of the Machine Shop, the man who taught me pretty much everything I know about motorcycle mechanics, he fixed an engine mount for a Bugatti that I can't remember what the quote was from Bugatti to fix it, but he has got it. He has done a repair completely to spec, an engine mount that was cracked in 3 places, and it's a pretty incredible piece of work. And things are getting really exciting over there. I'm very happy to be associated with that group.
Yeah, I can understand that. Okay, so when you contacted me a few weeks back, I had coincidentally just learned that you were off and about to make your first film based around the Kurentovanje Carnival Festival in Slovenia. Hopefully I've said that right. If I haven't, I'm sure you're going to correct me.
Yeah, it's Kurentovanje, I think is how you pronounce it, but I'm not entirely certain that I'm pronouncing it correctly either. Slovene's a very hard language.
Yeah, I'm sure. Anyway, look, you're back in the UK now, having survived riding to and from Slovenia during the winter. And obviously, I want to ask you all about your experience shooting the film. But first, perhaps you can tell me how you got to this point, because you've been making short-form video content for a while, and also you're no stranger to being on film sets.
Yeah, true. So my background with film sets is, well, not even behind the camera, sort of separate from it. So I spent 3 years running security teams for film and TV shoots in the UK, which is nowhere near as glamorous as anyone thinks. There's a lot of standing around. Every now and then you do something really cool, like you shut down a street for a vehicle stunt or something like that. I did at one point with myself, the stunt coordinator, the director of the film, and a captain from the RAF coordinate a helicopter landing in front of a mansion, which was quite good fun. But in general, it's a lot of hanging about and arguing with paparazzi and things like that. But I think I absorbed quite a lot out of osmosis, and I've always been into film anyway. I'm a bit of a film geek. And yeah, when this started, one thing actually led into the other. So I was working on film sets, and when the writer's strike came, my work dried up. So the catalyst for this really was being out of work, being a bit bored, and I was making silly videos and sending them to my friends. And my friends Maddie and Connor turned around to me and said, "Oh, you should." They're a little bit younger than me. They said, "Oh, you should put them online." And I just thought, well, no one's interested in anything I'm doing. I'm in my mid to late 30s now and being silly. They said, "Oh no, give it a go." And yeah, I put a few up and they just hit, and it just kind of snowballed. But the move to long form, well, it's twofold. Like, YouTube is the way to make money. Not lots of money, but a bit of money. You have to be wildly successful to make lots of money. So having some income from that, where I'm not having to do everything through product details or affiliate sales, just having something that generates money per views. Because Instagram, my most successful platform, that doesn't generate anything. So, I had one video that had 8.5 million views. It doesn't actually earn me anything. So YouTube seemed like the best thing to do, but also, like, there's a lot more scope for being creative. You can tell a much better story, and you've got no limit to what you can do. You can make a 5-minute short film, or you can make a 5-hour epic if you wanted to. If you had the budget and free time and you wanted to put that on YouTube, you could 100% do that. So yeah, sort of pushing myself a bit more creatively and trying to generate a little bit more income from what it is that I'm doing.
In the early days of you flirting with Instagram, what was the content that was resonating with the audience?
It's hard to say because so it's become a lot more bike focused now, and that was partially to do with the audience, but it was also the bike companies that took note. So I made a lot of really silly videos. I was basically trying to do sort of comedy sketches by myself on the farm, and I used to do stand up, and like there's I live in the middle of nowhere in Cornwall. There's not a lot of audiences and open mics here, so I was just playing around. So I had a series which people keep on asking me to bring back, but no one actually watches it, called Books on the Bog, where I would read a passage from a book to classical music whilst sat on my outhouse toilet, which is a big compost toilet that I had. I'm currently repairing it because it got blown apart in a storm. I would do, sketches based around kind of parodying other sort of online trends. But I started making videos with me fixing my bike, and the whole point of it was that I was a crap mechanic. I was just like, I didn't know what I was doing. So I would film myself doing a job with very little idea. And you can check on YouTube and things like that. They're a great resource, but it's no substitute for having someone who knows what they're doing standing next to you. And I got this combination of really supportive comments and people in a frothing rage because they were so annoyed that someone who didn't know what they were doing was trying to do it. And my whole thing was just like, well, this is how you find out how to do stuff. Like, you've got to be a bit shit at something when you start it. And I look back at my old videos now, and I think that I am making better videos now. And I look like, especially with my mechanical skills, like a job that used to take me like 2 hours now takes me half an hour, and I'm not intimidated by pulling bits off my bike and putting it back together. I've actually completely stripped and rebuilt my Tiger last year. So yeah, I think that was one of the real things where people start to take notice. And then I talk about a lot about bike culture and having a motorbike, and people ask more and more questions about the bike, so I made more and more videos about the bike. And then I ended up becoming friendly with some of the better known people sort of on the Instagram space. So we'd go to events together. It was actually, the guy who's now the biggest guy in the space, Harvey Rides Bikes, who introduced me to the head of Triumph's press fleet at a bike event in London. And he said, "Oh, have you got press loans yet?" And I was like, "No, what's a press loan?" And he explained, it's like, "Oh, these companies will just let you play with their bike if you make a video about it." I'm just like, "Oh, I had no idea." Like, I was extremely naive to how all this worked. I still think I am to a degree. And yeah, I had to learn a lot of this on the fly. But yeah, once the opportunity came up to work with bike companies, and especially, if you say to any biker, "Hey, look, you can give us a call and borrow new bikes when you want to, as long as you do a video for us," it's just like, who's going to say no to that? So yeah, it became more centered around motorbikes. But I think it originally started, it was like a sort of, I still try and keep a bit of the comedy stuff in there and some of the off-grid living stuff. And it's why I decided to make this new film, because it's a load of things that I love. It's a bike trip which involves traveling to a weird, not weird, but a different country that a lot of people don't really know about. And it also has like a big cultural festival and event. And I love festivals, I love travel, I love motorbikes. So yeah, it was just a no-brainer, really.
Just before I go on and ask a lot of questions about the film and the filmmaking, through your experience with Instagram so far and your discussions with other big hitters in the space, as you've indicated, do you have a sense of what works, what the audience wants out there? Like, do you have any opinion on why Harvey is so popular, for example?
I mean, if you're just speaking about Harvey's popular because he's really good. He makes really nice, wholesome content. It does lean into the Instagram attention-getting thing. There's a lot of quick cuts. His editing's very smooth. I believe it's still his brother who's doing the editing for him. They're both very talented people. It's also wholesome and nice, and I think that that's not just something that's required in the biker community, but it's required sort of in the world at the moment. I mean, I don't really watch the news, but you only need to scroll on your feed for a few minutes, and you just there's just a lot of misery in the world. And if someone can give you a 90-second video where you're just not bothered, like you're not having all this depressing nasty stuff, like Harvey's videos, for example, showing a nice interaction, or with myself, like my usual thing is like, okay, it's like, can I make this funny? Like, can I make someone laugh? I think that's what works for me anyway, is like trying to be funny, because you can obviously there's a lot of people who make careers by just getting online and saying incredibly controversial things, because that will get engagement. I deliberately don't talk about politics or anything. I don't have a lot of strong political opinions, to be honest, but I don't get involved in any of them because I'm not interested in sparking those debates on my channel. But yeah, I don't think there's any one thing that works for Instagram or other social medias. There's lots of different things that work, and you've got to find out which one you're good at. I think that's about what I've learned so far.
Okay, so coming to the film now. So what was the original premise for the film, or should I say films, plural? Because according to your GoFundMe page, the intention is to actually make 2 films out of the footage you shot during the trip.
Yeah, so When I sort of started, my focus was on Kurentovanje. It's on the festival. It's also because I want my YouTube, because it's just started, I want the YouTube to not be just bike focused, because the Instagram has shifted to being very bike focused. And it's like, I can pull that back. I'm in control of that. But as I grow the YouTube audience, I want it to be clear that it's like, it's not just a bike channel. And I thought, like, okay, this is a really cool thing that I'm interested in, that I think other people will be interested in. And this is what I wanted to use as a catalyst to perhaps approach other sponsors. So we've kind of filmed this as a pilot. So it's a travel film where we go on motorbikes and we go and explore something that's new and interesting. So the first film is about Kurentovanje, the festival, this amazing winter tradition that they have in Slovenia. There's versions of it over all these different Slavic countries, but in Slovenia, particularly in the area we're in, Ptuj, it's the oldest known performance of this ritual. And it used to be by the unmarried young men. They would dress up as these creatures and they would go and chase the snow and the winter spirits out. But at the same time, it's like, well, okay, we're making a film. We're making a film on motorbikes. Like, most people don't actually know what that's like. And there's loads of people who want to do this. Like, every time I go to an event, people come up to me and go, oh, I really want to get into what you're doing. And my advice to them is pretty bad, because my situation is really unique. I'm just like, well, if you just don't have a job and are willing to have no money and only spend money on your bike and not have any dependents or anything like that, it's easy. Don't worry. But I was like, okay, so do people understand what really goes into this? Like how much slower your travel is when you're filming everything, the effort that goes into stuff, because it's not just a case of you take a camera out and just film exactly what happens. It would be lovely if it was, but you do have to set stuff up. Unfortunately, we had James Archibald with us, very talented guy. He's worked for MCN. I'm actually doing some more work with him soon. And, he has the right eye for seeing these shots that I'm not going to be able to see. My thinking, bringing him along, because I find filming things myself slows me down, is I can turn around to James and go, I think this will look good. I want to say this here. You tell me how we should set that up. And we worked well together with that. So, yeah, like, we're going to talk about how we got funding for it. But also the other two guys who are with us, my friends Ed and Greg. Greg's a member of the machine shop with me, so I know him through there. Ed's a guy I used to do security work with. And neither of them had done long distance travel before. We did a sit down at the end and kind of did a round table where I spoke to everyone and we got their feelings on it as well. So as two people who'd never done that, who hadn't been to that country before, hadn't made a motorcycle film before, hadn't done long distance travel before, so we've got their fresh perspective on what that journey was like for them.
Okay, I guess I won't ask too many questions about that and spoil the film. But it's not actually your first time to attend the festival, is it?
No. So I ended up living on my own in a 300-year-old vineyard in Slovenia when I was in my mid-20s. I think it was 2012 or 2013 I was there, because of a conversation I'd had at a funeral with a very distant family member. So I believe he is my third cousin. So my great uncle, which was his father, it was at his funeral. And then my third cousin's wife was just chatting to me at one point. She said, oh, what do you do for a living? And at the time, I did like construction and agricultural fencing. I particularly used to do a lot of fencing work. And she said, oh, we've got this property in Slovenia. Would we be interested in fencing it? I was like, yeah, why not? Like, she said, when are you free? And I was like, well, I was just about to leave to go for another job, because people sort of, every now and then when I start talking about low life and telling stories, the sort of people go, it's like, oh, how did you make all this stuff happen? It's like, you just say yes to opportunities when they come up. Like, it's not that tricky. Like, you surround yourself with interesting people, and when someone says, do you want to go and do this? Say yes. Don't and and think of it. Just go, yeah, all right, that sounds fun. So I was on my way to Thailand to go and do a building conversion with very little experience on how to do a building conversion. But a friend of mine who's an artist, who's a bit She doesn't have the most practical mindset, and assumed because I could do basic DIY, I could do a building conversion, and I wasn't going to argue with her because I was quite happy to take 4 months in Thailand. So yeah, I went and did that, and then I came back from Thailand where it had been the coldest it had been was like 20 degrees at night time and 30 in the day. Moved to Slovenia at the start of, well, I think it was the end of January or start of February, where it was minus 20 overnight and got up to about -4 in the day. And I lived alone in this completely empty vineyard. The building had one bed at the very top floor in it. It was so cold. Someone had stolen all of the oil out of the tanker, so I had no hot water for the first month I was there. And I wasn't being paid very well either. And it's not particularly fascinating, but my main job changed. I wasn't fencing anymore. I'd been asked to prepare the house for the building work they wanted to do. So I was sanding down an entire house because it's these beautiful oak dovetailed beams. And back in the 70s, someone had come by and plasterboarded the whole house. They'd used lime plaster, and it had scored these sort of lime burns into the pattern of the wood, which just looked really ugly. So I essentially sanded down an entire house, and some of it sort of burnt in by about 1/2 inch. So took forever. And then when the snow melted, it became my job to pull up all the old vines because they can get fungus. If you haven't worked on them for 5 years, you're encouraged by the government to remove them and replant them. But to get back to Kurentovanje, my first experience of the currents, and I would advise your listeners, so they know what I'm talking about, either check out my Instagram page so you can see these creatures, or just Google the word current, Kurrent, Slovenia. And they're these amazing creatures. They're sort of 8 foot tall. They've got ribbons coming out the top of their heads. They've got horns. They carry clubs. They've got this belt of cowbells, these big fluffy sheepskin costumes. And I was sat in my local pub where, you know, I didn't speak much Slovene. They didn't speak much English. And I was just downloading films to watch on my phone for when I got back to the house because I had no internet up there. And all of a sudden the door bursts open and about 10 of these creatures come in, and they're all singing and they're jumping up and down and shouting, and it's just like these cowbells are ringing. It's this cacophonous noise. And all the Slovenes are smiling and cheering and yelling, and I was just looking out. I had no idea what was going on. And then they all finish their dancing, and they take their hoods off, and you see these big, sweaty Slovenian farm men underneath the hoods, and they all get given a free drink, and then they all run off again. And I just turned I'd never seen anything like this before, so I turned around to the barmaid, and back then, like, you know, I have to say, I can speak a bit of German. Most of the Slovenes back then could speak a bit of German. It was only really people younger than me that could speak English. Most of the older people didn't speak any English, and I love learning languages, but Slovene's so hard. It's the hardest language I've ever tried to learn. And I start talking to the woman, and slowly she sort of explains, it's like, oh, it's this winter tradition. And then I went into town a few days later and just saw these guys everywhere, like these huge creatures running around. And it's also, as a cultural thing, it's like a time of giving for the Slovenes, and it's a time of like letting go of everything. So Kurentovanje is a huge party where you're told not to worry about anything. It's like this is just one time where you can be yourself, be free, and not be stressed about the world. And it's just a great big party, and there's a big emphasis on hospitality in that area of Slovenia anyway. But particularly Kurentovanje, it's about sharing, offering people food and drink everywhere you go, which, you know, it's lovely. But it's kind of, even though it's an old tradition, particularly in that area of Slovenia, it's a very noticeable thing everywhere you go. Because obviously Slovenia was previously a communist country. They were under communism for quite some time. Now they're no longer under communism. The fact that they can share willingly what they have produced, people have a great sense of pride in it. So I talk about this a bit in the film. That there's a huge sense of people really wanting, like, if they've made a really good batch of wine, they tell all of their neighbours, it's like, oh, please, like, take one of these bottles of wine I made. Or if they've all shot a boar and they've made a load of sausages, they go around to all their close friends and just deliver some sausages. It's like, oh, I shot this boar, please take some of this. And like it's a very, very community-driven culture. but it comes naturally. It's not something that's enforced. And yeah, it's a beautiful country and a beautiful culture.
So is it fair to say that you were with this film, trying to recapture sort of, or even honor or celebrate that experience that you had before? Or is that a little bit over dramatic?
No, you're not wrong. I think so. I'd never seen it, and the whole reason that I wanted to do this film is in the 14 years it had been since I'd been to that country, I had never met another person that knew what Kurentovanje was until 2 weeks before I left, where I was taking some photos of a bike on the moors, and these two old boys came up to me and started chatting about the bike, and I explained like what I do for a living. And I said, oh, we're about to go to Slovenia. We're making a film about this thing called Kurentovanje. I said, no one's ever heard of it here, so I want to explain it to people. And this chap turned around and went, oh, no, I've heard of it. And I was like, oh, really? And he said, yes, I was there at the end of the war helping them put the country back together. And I was like, okay, cool. And he had the same experience as me. He just turned up in town one day. There's all these giant furry creatures. And he said he thought it was amazing. And he was like the same as me. I was the first person he'd spoken to and knew about this. So it's not so much that I want to go, hey, I want people to feel the experience I feel. I want people to know about this. We joke about it in the film, is when you say Slovenia, the one thing people know is it's where Melania Trump's from. Like, that's about the only thing people know about Slovenia. And, regardless of what your political feelings are, that Slovenia should be known for more than that. Like it's a really, really amazing country, amazing people, amazing culture. It's gorgeous. Like the winter there is this dramatic, heavy snow, and because they live in snow, they know how to deal with it. And then the spring happens so quickly. You can like watch flowers bloom in real time, and it's a lively place, and it's very like, even though it's like modernized and modern technology is there. There's this strong sense of traditional values of like hard work, generosity, kindness to strangers. It's just, it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. And because Slovenia was so hospitable to me when I was first there, and this time when I've gone back, this feels like something I can do for Slovenia. It's like, if I make this film and then next year, 20 people decide that they're going to go and watch Kurentovanje and be a part of that week. And then they start telling their friends about it, and more people end up going and seeing Patui, this beautiful historical town, and exploring the areas around that. And Igor, our host, amazing guy, he owned a vineyard that was literally 5 minutes from the vineyard that I used to live in. I found him on Airbnb and I said, look, we're making this film. We want to promote Kurentovanje. We want to promote Slovenian culture. Is there any chance you could do a deal? There's 4 of us that want to stay for a week. And he just turned around and he was like, oh, well, look, just tell people to come to Slovenia and tell people about my place. And you can have it for free. And he just like, well, that was going to be the biggest expense for the whole film. It's the other reason we're making the second film is to show just people just don't realize how expensive it is to do something like this. And I'm coming from a position of having no money anyway. My biggest concern in approaching this, my 2 biggest expenses was going to be the fact that I'd be covering James's costs, and I had to pay James, and the accommodation in Slovenia. I was like, those are the 3 biggest things I'm going to have to do. I was able to save up enough money before we went that I could cover James's costs. We managed to get the accommodation for free. And I appreciate you've already mentioned the GoFundMe. That is to pay James's wages. James came along on good faith that I will pay him eventually for the work he's done. And, I think he's grateful that he got this cool experience about it. Like I said earlier about saying yes to experiences, he went there and saw something that he wouldn't have otherwise seen. So I know he's happy about that. But I now have the added pressure of like, shit, I actually owe this guy quite a lot of money now because he's come and done a really high level of work. And everything I do currently goes into being able to keep doing this. So I work really hard at not having to get a real job again.
Okay. In terms of the film or the films, what sort of writing or pre-visualization process did you have before setting off?
I kind of approach things in a bit of a weird. I know that James found this difficult, so I was like, "Look, it's a documentary. We shoot what we shoot." I had a couple of shots that I wanted to get, and a couple of things I wanted to talk about, but I didn't have any set lines or scenes because both films are a documentary. It's like if something comes up, we'll do it. And with something like that, if you push it too far one way or the other, so if you push it too far as in like, I want to make this, I think you can stifle it. So we had a plan. I looked at the schedule for the festival. I was like, right, we're going to be here on this night, here on this day. We're going to film this here. We're going to film this here. On the first night we arrived, Igor, our host, Igor, arranged for a current group to come to the vineyard and do their dances there for him and some friends and us while we were there. So we got in on a long bike journey, and suddenly all this guy's friends had come over, then all these currents turned up, they do their dances, their displays, and then we got chatting with people, and they said, "What's your plan?" And I started explaining the plan to them. He went, no, don't do that. Go to this, go do this, go to... So everything changed on the first day of what we were planning to shoot. For the better, because we ended up becoming friendly with the current group. They invited us to join them for a day on one of the parades and festivals. We got to go around to their clubhouse. We got to do some interviews with them. Turns out they're a very well-respected current group. They're very well-known people. And we also got invited to a carnival that happened in one of the smaller towns that everyone said it's like, that's the one to go to because there's no health and safety barriers. Everyone just mingles and walks through. That's the way I like things. It's just so freeform. Everyone in Batui said, "Oh, COVID ruined it," because ever since COVID, they put up barriers at the side of the street. He said, "We never used to have that. They just kept them after COVID." But you go to this town, Markovici, and literally, James was having a great time because he could just, in Batui, he had to deal with the fact he was behind barriers, he didn't have a press pass, and we tried our best to get as good a shots as we could. But when we were in Markovici, James just got to stand right in the center of the road and get these incredible shots. I'm seeing him soon to go through all the footage. You can see some of the previews on my Instagram. Yeah, we've got some really, really cool shots. And because this isn't a particularly well-known festival, if you go online and Google these things, there are good photos on there, but I'm not sort of blowing too much smoke up his ass when I say I think James has taken some of the best photos I've ever seen of currents. And I think that his photos from this event are going to become quite recognizable. Yeah, so sorry, to go back to your question. Yeah, we had a plan, but we just had to abandon it to chase other things. I know James needed so James was used to doing bike shoots and things where they'll say, "Okay, you're going to be posted up on this corner. You're going to take a photo from here. We want 6 shots like this. The riders are going to come through about 30 miles an hour. They're going to be turning this way, looking this way, whatever." And everything's very set up for them. I couldn't provide it with this because I was just like, I don't know what we're going to see. We're going to shoot what we shoot. We're going to turn up there. If we see something nice, then we should do it. So, one of the things was I wanted some setting shots. So walking around town, it's like, let's get some shots of Batui. So we dedicated an hour to just walk through town. And if we found, because Batui is gorgeous, it's a very well preserved ancient city. It was one of the early Roman crossroads. And it's beautiful cobbled streets, fascinating looking old buildings. So we just walked through town while the parade was going on, away from the parade, so we could get these amazing old streets and shots of the buildings, just with a few less people in them. And but beyond that, I was just like, look, we're going to interview people, we're going to talk to them. So it's talking heads. And then there was a few things like, oh, I'd really like some slow motion shots of the bells going. But it was very freeform. So I didn't have. I had an idea of what I wanted to make, but I wanted to record what we saw. I didn't want to force a certain narrative on it.
Mm. Do you know already how much footage you've got, in terms of hours of footage or gigabytes of footage?
Probably way too much. I know that from shooting by myself, I overshoot, and I sort of thought it's well, James is probably a bit more conservative than me because he knows he knows that he's done this before, but at the same time, the festival is such a feast for the eyes. So when they have the parades out there, it's not just the currents. They have hundreds of people dressed up in costumes, usually of either like something that they're a big fan of or a cultural celebration. It's fascinating. In fact, you see a lot of things we wouldn't see over here. So again, we talk about this in the film, but I'll go into it a bit now. During the parades, we had like a couple of people come through, and there'll be like 200 people all dressed as I've forgotten the name of it now. The monster from Little Shop of Horrors, the Clarice, is it? No, Claude. Everyone knows what I mean, the carnivorous plant thing. And then there was a load of people who came by as the Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland. And then we had like the Peruvian pan fluters. So everyone's come by in the little woolen hats. And then a load of Saudis marched past us, and they're all waving big stacks of cash, and they're all drinking. And I turned around to the guys, and I was like, by the way, like they don't like the whole idea of like cultural appropriation and everything. It doesn't really exist here, and they're not doing it in an offensive way. Like this is a celebration of world culture, and that's what Kurentovanje is. It's a celebration of people all around the world, and the Slovenes, like, they see it as honouring and tributing the culture. And I'm glad that I explained this when the Saudis walked past, because when the African drummers walked past, and we had everyone's in blackface, and it's like, to a Western mindset, or not even to a Western mindset, to a British mindset or an American mindset, a lot of places in the world now, that would be seen as wildly offensive. And you absolutely, like, I wouldn't advise anyone walk down the street and do it here. The Slovenes do not see it that way at all. They're like, oh yeah, no, it's like particularly for the Africans, it's like, well, they're one of the oldest cultures in the world, so we've all come from them, so we're showing our tribute to them. And there's nothing seen wrong in the way that they behave that. So we were chatting to one of the guys, and I'm really glad we got this on film. Dennis, who he's one of the currents who we were filming and talking to, and we were explaining this to him, and we were just like, you wouldn't be able to do that in England. Like, it was the day later, and we were at the parade, and the Saudis walked by again, and we started talking to him about it. And I was just like, I said, so like, what's your opinion on this? And he goes, oh, it's fancy dress. People are having fun. And I was like, so is it common for people to dress up as different cultures in Slovenia? He said, yeah. He said, you'll see people from all over the world. And he wasn't wrong. Like I say, you had the Rio Carnival came past us at one point. And we started explaining to us, like, look, if the four of us, because we're four white guys, I said, if we dressed up like that in England and went out, like, people would take photos of us and they'd try and get us fired from our jobs. And he just turned around and he was like, why? He said, these people are saying it's a good thing. He said, he actually said, to directly quote him, I really like you guys, but your country is fucking stupid. He just like, because it's literally, it's all about the intention. And so in a way, part of me was a bit concerned when I saw that, because it doesn't matter what happens, there will be people when we show that footage that are offended by it or don't get it. But I'm really glad that we had the opportunity to show that something like this can happen, and it's not done in a mocking or demeaning way. It really is done as something nice. But to go back again to your original question, like, when we're there to film a festival about these magical creatures who clear away the snow, and then you suddenly have all of this being added into it, it's like, right, well, that's added a whole extra section to the film now. So yeah, it was like, it's hard not to be a bit greedy when you're constantly having these things pop up that are really exciting and really interesting to film and are worth documenting because they're all part of the story. So yeah, it's going to be I'm the one editing it, so it's going to be a long haul.
And was James the only one capturing the footage, or did you have other cameras going as well?
So I've got some stuff on my phone, which will probably mostly be used for the how it's made thing. So how to make a motorbike film. I did ask the other guys to do it, but I just sort of said to them, it's like, oh, if you think of something interesting, just film yourself in landscape, talking to the camera, or film something if we've got it. So to be fair, one of them did get a lot of GoPro footage. But GoPro footage is really only good for an incidental. Like it's a good transition shot. I don't understand people who put up, an hour and a half of their ride across Dartmoor or something, and there's no cuts, there's no edits. It's just, I don't want to stare at your handlebars for an hour and a half. I don't know who watches those videos either. It's like we mentioned Harvey earlier. He's having interactions. There's quick cuts. There's edits. Like GoPros are brilliant for that sort of stuff, or for getting really cool action shots, like handlebar perspective of a stunt. But I think people overuse GoPros and think that people are too interested in them. So yeah, GoPros absolutely have their place, but you have to be quite conservative with them. And yeah, I said to the guys, it's like, can you film stuff? But it's not in their heads. Like I've had to train myself to film. I mentioned Bob from the machine shop earlier. We've both had to train ourselves to think like filmmakers, like rather than what we're doing. It's like, so Bob's a fabricator and a welder, and I'm, my background's security. Like, if I'm doing a job on the bike, I don't always think it's like, oh, I need to film this bit. I've had to train myself so hard in the last 2 years. And the other thing is, it's realizing what's interesting to other people might seem boring to you. Where I live is a great example. I don't think it's particularly fascinating that I live in a caravan and have cold showers with a hose and I have an outhouse compost toilet, because that's what I live with every day. What stunned me was the fact that so many people, because, they live in a normal house or whatever, like that seems really wild and therefore interesting to them. To me, it's not particularly interesting, but to other people, they really like it. And so, yeah, realizing stuff that may appear to be mundane to you might actually be interesting to other people, and having to work that out. The amount of projects I've given up on because I've got bored of them, because I've seen so much of it. And I sort of think, oh, no one will want to watch that. It's boring. It's like, well, I think it's boring because I've done it 20 times. The first time I did it, it was really interesting. And it could be that the people watching it, it'll be the first time they're watching it. So yeah, it's a tricky one to work out. But yeah, the other guys were definitely interested in filming stuff, but it's something you do have to train yourself to do.
Yeah, it's definitely a language that has to be learnt and practiced. And I do believe anything can be made interesting if you shoot it in an interesting way. But yeah, it's definitely a skill. Tell me about the trip. So there were 4 of you. I assume you were all on bikes. Is that right?
Yeah, all on bikes. Myself, Triumph very kindly provided me with the new Tiger 900 Rally Pro, which is a phenomenal bike. So I've got an 800 XCX. The Rally Pro is essentially the next gen of that. It's improved in every little way. I'm extremely emotionally attached to my Tiger, and I'm not in a financial situation to decide like, oh, well, I'll just swap it for the other. It's like, I have no choice. I'm keeping my Tiger, but I love my Tiger. I can easily say that the Rally Pro 900 is one of the best bikes I've ever ridden. It's just phenomenal. Very, very capable of road. I put maybe 3,000, 4,000 miles on it on this trip. And yeah, just had a great time with it. My friend Ed was on a Tiger I want to say XCA he was on. A slightly older model, I think that's 2017, so back when it still had the analog dash. And then James was on a new Suzuki. I forget which model it is. I think it's the touring version of the GXS. And then Greg was on a 400 DRZ, which, fair play to him, because I said I want to do back roads the whole way because we're doing a lot of distance. But I was just like, oh, we'll do back roads. And I calculated it based on my ability to move by myself. Like, so not knocking anyone's riding ability. When you ride, because I actually had one of the guys complaining that I was too slow at one point. I was like, I'm going slow because we've got a 400 in the group. Yeah, like anyone who's ridden group rides knows this. You move slower because there's always someone who will need to stop for more reasons, like, maybe someone's got a smaller bladder, maybe someone gets more hungry than the others, maybe someone's bike is a bit more fuel thirsty than the rest. There's there's all these little things, and it takes a while to get into a rhythm, especially for guys who hadn't traveled together before. Both myself and James are just riddled with ADHD, so we're really like it. Well, I've never had a diagnosis, but I've been on a waiting list for 3 years now, and it would explain why my life is such an absolute clusterfuck, because I can't organise anything. And Ed is one of the most organised people I'd ever met. I had to explain to him the difference between a soft 9 and a hard 9. Like, a hard 9 means we are on the bikes, kickstands up at 9 o'clock. A soft 9 means we could leave at 10. Like, I want people awake at 9. I want to at least have seen everyone at 9. So he found that a bit confusing and frustrating. I think myself and James were responsible for most of the late leaves. And then because we were stopping to film as well, that added a lot of time. I thought it would be a little bit quicker because I was like, right, well, I'm not the one who's going to have to set up the camera. I'll have James set up the camera and I'll be on camera. So it'll actually work a bit quicker. But because we're working with someone who's got a professional setup with multiple lenses and actually decent gear, it took about the same time. I'm glad it did because we got some amazing shots. But yeah, it was slow going. So we ended up having to jump onto the Autobahn a bit more than I wanted to. Obviously for Greg on the DRZ, that was not the most fun he had. He's got no windscreen. I was trying to keep the pace 120 kilometers, which I think is about 70. So that's a nice sitting pace. But obviously it means when you're overtaking, that little 400's not got a lot left in it at that point. So yeah, it wasn't, those bits of the journey weren't fun. But I did say to everyone, I gave everyone so much fair warning, and it actually turned out to be way better than I expected. You're probably not going to have fun on a lot of this. Like, it's going to be miserable because I ride in stupid conditions. And I'm known for riding in pretty much anything at all times of the year. Not because I'm particularly tough or a great rider. I just don't have a car, so I have no option. So I just go out and ride in anything. And I said to all these guys, it's like, look, so Ed had never actually ridden in the rain before. Greg wasn't super keen on riding in bad weather, but he'd done it. James kind of knows what he's doing. James has ridden in some pretty miserable stuff, but we could not have been luckier with the weather. We had a slightly grey day on one of the Germany days, but other than that, like, for the time of year, considering it was February, we were really lucky. Hellstatt was supposed to be -11 on the way up there, and so we stopped at the bottom of the mountains. We got to Salzburg on the German-Austria border. So it's still quite low at that point. We're about to go into the mountain. And I just checked in with everyone. I was like, right, the weather app says that Hellstatt is at -11 right now. We're going to do a lot of elevation. It's going to get really cold. You're going to be miserable. You're all going to be pissed off with me. But this is what we came here to do. And then we got about halfway there and started riding along this lake that was completely frozen over. And James just waved me down and was just like, right, this is the place to do a drone shot. Let's get this done. And honestly, it was phenomenal. He actually wanted to stay there longer and I wanted to push further up. And in hindsight, that was a mistake because I was like, the higher we go, like the colder and the worse it's going to get. And that's what I want to get. I want to get us riding in like real snow. And fortunately, when we got to Hellstatt, it was 4 degrees and their lake wasn't frozen. And I was just like, and it said on the thermometer, I made a video and it's like, I'm very honest in my videos. I made a video going, oh, it's -11 where we are now. And I showed the banner from my weather app showing it's -11, but I'm standing next to a lake that's clearly not frozen. Like, so we're all just throwing snowballs at each other, just being like, apparently like this is supposed to be like dangerously low temperatures, but yeah, it was fine. But yeah, we got these shots of us going along this frozen lake. It was absolutely gorgeous. And the next day we went out and we found this mountain road with these really nice switchbacks, and it was sort of off the beaten track enough, so it wasn't, even though it's Austria, so the roads are pretty well maintained, it wasn't so well maintained that it was completely safe. That made for some great shots of us just riding through the snow, because that was another big part of this, is like to show So I'm a big proponent of riding all year round. It's like, you don't need summer to go on a motorcycle trip. It's like, yeah, I get it. It's nicer. But if you love motorbikes and you want to see something cool, riding through the Austrian Alps in winter on a motorbike, one of the coolest things I've ever done. It was absolutely incredible. I get it's not for everyone, but it is doable, and I would encourage more people to go and do things like that. I mean, everyone who we rode past looked at us like we were crazy. Like, they'd see people on motorbikes in February in the Alps, and every now and then you'd get someone like giving you a big thumbs up and looking really excited. Most people just looked absolutely shocked, like we were idiots, which is a fair assessment. And then we got to Slovenia, where I said everything's going to be covered in snow. We got to Slovenia, and it's the most unseasonably warm winter they've had in about 50 years. And all the snow had already melted. They got a really early spring. And we were like, shit. The whole point of us coming here is to say these are the creatures that chase away the snow. And we were going to be... The whole film, this goes into what we were saying with planning earlier. I should have brought this up. The whole film was supposed to be bikes in the snow. The entire time, it was supposed to be covered in snow. And that was going to be the backdrop of, look at how cool this is. We're doing this bike trip in the snow. And yeah, all the snow had completely gone, which for the guys was great because, as I said, both Greg and Ed had never even ridden in the rain. Neither of them had ridden in snow before. And it was just like, oh, well, they don't have to worry then, which seemed great until we left. So when we left, we decided to go to, like, obviously, if anyone does know Slovenia, other than Melania Trump, the one thing that's known about Slovenia is Lake Bled. Lake Bled is this gorgeous, Bled is this gorgeous little town next to a lake. It's famous for having this, I'm not quite sure if it's a castle or exactly what it is, but it's got a cliff that rolls up the side of it with this beautiful building on top of it. And then there's a little island in the center of the lake that has a church on it. And it's a fairy tale town. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I was like, you know, again, James being a photographer, I was like, you're going to want to see Bled. Let's go up there and take some pictures of it. And we'll also get like the last of the journey before we head on. And we were originally going to press through to Italy to go to the Dolomites. And we got up that day and we started riding up. James hung back to take some pictures of the lake. Myself and Ed and Greg started heading up through to the mountains. And it started to snow. It hadn't snowed for a while. The gritters hadn't been out. Like, Slovenia is usually very prepared for the snow. But as we started to go up, the snow got heavier and heavier, and it was settling on the road. And we've all got comms on, and I could hear Greg start to get a bit worried. And he was complaining. He said he could feel his tire slipping. And I was like, it's fine, you know, just take it nice and easy. The whole way, if anyone's never ridden in snow before, high gear, low revs, very soft on the braking, leave yourself loads of braking room. It's like, don't be afraid if you look a bit silly. If you've got to get your bike from one way to the other, if you need to put your feet down and slide a little bit, that's absolutely fine. But just, yeah, you want to basically be putting as little power into your back wheel as possible to coast through it. And if you start to lose it, if anything, you want to speed up. It's a little bit like AD, who's an excellent off-road instructor, works with Austin Vince. He explained it to me. It's just like, he said, it's like riding on sand or mud. Like, you put a little bit of acceleration in to lift your front. And then obviously when you stop, you've got to stop very slowly. Well, Greg and Ed weren't quite aware of this. And all of a sudden, I just hear, oh, no. And Greg, I was coming from the back. Greg goes down. I could see cars had seen him. So I put my hazards on and I stopped. Sorry, I was in the middle. I put my hazards on and I stopped in the middle of the road and just came to a slow stop and sort of put my hands up to slow down the traffic. And then the next thing I know, Ed comes sliding by me and goes into a ditch on the other side of the road. And I was just like, so like everyone's on comms, like, you okay? He went, I think so. I was just like, right, do you need some help? He's like, no, I'll get it out. Like, so he's getting his bike out of the ditch. I'm stopping the road. Greg's got his bike up, and I can hear him swearing and getting annoyed. He's like, oh, the bike's fucked. This has happened. Just like, I was like, all right. It's like, let's let's turn around. Like, it's clearly not a good idea to push through the mountains today. Let's go back down to civilization and check out the bike. And Greg was understandably quite upset at this point. He'd come off his bike, he was in the snow, he was worried about damage. So he's in a bit of a bad mood. And I'm sort of saying to him, it's like, we need to find a spot to pull over. And he's like, well, where? I was just like, I tell you what, look, don't worry. He goes, will you go in front? I was like, so I went in front. I found a spot to pull over. I was like, look, let's just check the bikes. Take 5, have a breather, we'll be all right. And while we're checking his bike, 2 Slovenian police cars turn up and come straight towards us. And I was just like, oh yeah, this is definitely us they want to speak to. And they got out of the car and like, I turned on the charm offensive because I knew they were not going to be in any way impressed with us. It's like 3 stupid English lads riding motorbikes through the mountains in the snow. Like they think we're fucking idiots. So right, got to be really nice to these guys. So they get out. I'm like, hey, yeah, sorry, you're here for us. You heard about the accident. Yeah. I started talking. I was like, we're all okay. The bike's maybe a little bit damaged. And I started explaining that we were making this film about Kurentovanje. So like to try and ingratiate them a bit towards us. It's like, hey, we're promoting Slovenia. And the guy I was speaking to was actually being quite chill about everything, really nice. And the police officer starts asking Greg, he goes, it's like, he says something like, are you the one who crashed? He goes, what do you think? And Greg just starts yelling at him. And he had his helmet on still, so he can't hear the police officer. And he's yelling at the police officer. The police officer's having to yell at him to get his stuff. And I'm like, and I've interacted with the Slovenian police a few times. They're usually quite cool. There is a law, like you can be arrested for swearing in front of a police officer in Slovenia, not even at a police officer, just in front of them. So I was just kind of like, I was just getting a bit worried. And this guy's asking Greg all these questions. Greg keeps on shouting back at him. And then eventually he was just like, I need to breathalyze you. I was like, Greg, take your helmet off. And Greg took his helmet off. And I was just like, you need to be nice. And fair play to Greg. He's a very, very smart guy. He was just upset at the time. He just took a moment, looked at the situation, had a breath, and then he just calmed down. He went, yeah, all right. And he got breathalyzed, and then he was okay again. And he realized that he was just a bit upset because of what had happened. He wasn't difficult. And so we just apologized to the police. We're like, look, we're not going to cross the mountains today. We're going to go back down to Bled. We ended up meeting up with James again. But all those guys went back to the Airbnb. They just hired it out for another night and to make a new plan for the next day. And I was like, well, I came here to ride in the snow. So I went off by myself back up. I took the back roads into the mountains to get some photos and do some videos. And again, like, I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. I had a great day. Like, when I say back roads, I mean like real rural country roads. I was going about, the fastest I went on them was probably 30 miles an hour. I was mostly crawling around at 20. And I was just rolling through these mountain passes. And it was like beautiful, thick, heavy snow that just kept on coming down and kept on coming down. And the roads sort of turned into sort of dirt and gravel there. So by that point, you've got dirt and gravel with snow on it. I had 50-50 tires on the bike. It was actually a lot more manageable. And yeah, I just rolled through them. I got some great photos. I got video I was really happy with. I met a local farmer who was out with his tractor with a snowplow, who thought I was the stupidest person he'd ever met. At first he thought I'd broken down. And then I was just like, no, I just came here to take pictures. And he was like, you're crazy. He gave me a big thumbs up. We got that a lot. A lot of people called us crazy. And I went and filmed all this stuff, and I sort of looked around. I was like, oh, I'm really, like, as much as it sucks that someone went down, I'm really glad I got to actually have my ride in the snow. This is what I came here to do. I got back to the Airbnb, and the guys have been talking, and the original plan had been to try and make our way through Italy on the way back anyway. And I was absolutely fucked for money at this point, and we just lost a day. And I was like, to be honest, if we've lost a day of travel, Italy's a lot more expensive than Germany, especially with accommodation. I was like, I'm going to have to push back through Germany to get back across the channel. And the guys were all like, well, we don't want to go through the snow. We're going to go through Italy where the weather's a bit warmer. I was like, completely understood. So that's where we separated, and everyone kind of went their separate ways that day. Greg and James, the cameraman, stayed together for an extra day, I think, and went and saw a bit of Italy. Ed had some family stuff he had to take care of, so he just shot through Italy, but went along the south coast and sort of where it was a bit warmer and safer. I decided to head back to the German border to Salzburg again and I went north from Bled, went through a tunnel that went. I don't know what the elevation is in Bled, but I went through a tunnel that went down, and I left, and it was sort of sleet, rain. You could see mountains in the distance. I went down through this tunnel and came out into like snow peaks and a full blizzard. The tunnel was massive. If people want to Google it, if you just look on Google Maps and go from Salzburg to Bled, that's the route that I took. And yeah, when I came out on the north side of this tunnel, I was just in the tundra. And again, like really heavy snow. It's Austria. The roads have been properly treated, properly gritted. It was only sketchy in that it was settling on my visor by this point. So again, I slowed down. I was probably doing about 50 miles an hour. I made sure I could see what was in front of me. I stayed in the slow lane and I just let cars come past me. Because the weather was so bad, there wasn't actually a lot of cars as well, which was a big bonus for me, because I think if it had been busy traffic, that would have been a much scarier trip. And yeah, I rode that road in heavy snow for... it should have taken about, I think, an hour and 45. I think the whole thing took me 2.5 hours in the end because I was taking it nice and slow. But yeah, there is something about doing that I really enjoyed. And it's a shame, obviously, because I didn't have James and I don't have a GoPro or anything. Like, I couldn't film that. I did stop and film myself at a petrol station at one point just to kind of show the scenario. But, like, riding in an environment like that, knowing it's something that not a lot of people have done, it does give you like a little bit of a sense of achievement. It's a really fun, silly thing. And it is, as I keep saying, it's just beautiful. It's really nice that you get to look at this incredible scenery that most people wouldn't take that journey at that point because they're worried about it. And there's something about the... Even though, like I keep on saying, it's Austria, they know how to look after the roads, they know how to keep it safe. That little element of danger does make it a little bit more fun. And it does make the sort of beauty of your surroundings a little bit more intense, just kind of knowing it's like, oh, this could all go wrong really quickly.
So you mentioned that you're the one who's going to be doing the editing of the film. Have you started that yet? Where are you at with the process of actually making the film now?
So James had a job in Lyon afterwards, and I hadn't seen him since he got back. He said there's too much to do it online, so he's going to put everything on a hard drive for me, and I'm going to collect it off him manually. And then I'm going to sort through the footage. One of the nice things now about the refit that has been done at the machine shop is the machine shop's expanded. We've got a second unit now. And one of the things that I said to Bob would be really useful is having an editing bay. So the machine shop editor, very talented guy called Jish, he's been given an office space, and there's enough space for like 2 more laptops to be set up there. So one of the things that I found the most difficult last year, being at the shop, is I would sit down with a laptop, but it's an active workshop. You've got people doing things, and people want to talk to you, people want to be involved in chat and things. It's natural. But I didn't have like a quiet workspace. And I was camping when I was up there, so I didn't exactly have a house I could go around and sit at. When I'm at home, I've only got solar power. So, if the weather's not good, I can't edit. So yeah, having an office space to edit, something I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, it's probably going to take a while. But as I say, I have a rough idea of how it is. One of the things that I have found that I do have a little bit of skill in is extracting the story out of something. So that's going to be my job with the footage now, is I know in my head, I have about 60 to 70% of it structured. I know the order I want to tell things, how I want things to go. And then it's also finding segments that lead into each other like smoothly. So, you don't just want to do a chronological event of what's happening. You want to cover the different subjects and lead on. But the main premise of the Kurentovanje film is to show this really cool festival and to tell people how amazing Slovenia is as a country. The main purpose of the motorcycle film is to give people a more realistic idea of what goes into doing something like this, and also show it from the perspective of myself, who's an enthusiastic amateur who's really trying to do this and make it work, James, who is a professional but hasn't worked with someone like me before, who is approaching this like firsthand with no real experience, and Greg and Ed, who've come along for the ride but ended up being a very important part of the picture because it's their experiences as people who didn't, well, who knew that we were there to make a film but had no preconceptions about what that was going to be like.
So you usually make short form content. So have you formed any opinion now about making longer content versus making the shorter content?
Yeah, I mean, it takes longer. Surprise, surprise. It is more difficult. Being engaging for 90 seconds is very different to being engaging for 10 minutes. Also, certain things that you have to consider. So for Instagram, you have access to a bank of licensed music that you can use in your videos. For YouTube, they're a lot more stringent about stuff like that. It's not as easy to do those things. So, you know, I would love to have some Ennio Morricone scores in the background of some of my videos because they'd be epic, but it's not so simple. There are ways to buy licenses and things. I've looked into it. I also just don't have a lot of money, so I can't be like the idea of paying for licensing unless it's the perfect piece of music doesn't really work for me. It's also people watch things differently when they go to YouTube. So I can be very experimental on Instagram, and I can just have an idea and see what works. It's like YouTube, you need I think a little bit more structure and narrative. You need to I think the term people use is breadcrumbing, where you sort of keep people watching by and what happens next. I don't like a lot of the algorithm chasing stuff. I did that for a while. When I've been doing it for about a year, I sat down with someone who'd been doing Instagram for a while, and they gave me all this advice on sort of how to make Instagram work for you, how to like make videos, especially for the algorithm, the right keywords to use and all this. And I suddenly had all this extra information, and I tried really hard to follow it all. And if anything, it negatively impacted my views. And I was just like, I'm just stressing myself out. So now I make what I feel like making, and if it does well, that's great. And if it doesn't do well, it probably means that it just wasn't that good. It's not that the algorithm hates me, not that Instagram's shadow banned me or anything. It's just not as good. It's not as good or not as exciting as the other things that had come up. And yeah, sometimes that just happens. But with YouTube, because it takes so long to put something together, you want to make sure you don't make something crap. Now, I was really bummed out with because one thing that will affect you in terms of like algorithms and what people do is if you put something up for 2 days and then take it down and then put up another version of it that's slightly different, which I had to do with a film I made for Austin Vince about the Vince event that I do with him. It's a great event, and I'm actually really pleased with how the film came out. Looked really cool. But I put it up and I said to Austin, "Are you happy with this?" He said, "Oh yeah, that's great." And then 3 days later, he messaged me and he was like, "Oh, actually, if you wouldn't mind," he said, because I left a couple of swear words in. He said, "Actually, if you wouldn't mind deleting those swear words, because I might want to use this footage for other things and show people it." And there was also someone doing something on a bike that he was like, "We don't want to encourage that sort of behavior, so let's not have that in there." And I said, "Yeah, that's fair enough." So I took them out and then I put the video back up. And what that meant is everyone who subscribes to my channel on YouTube who sees the video come up, clicks on it and they go, "Oh, I've already watched this one," and they click it off again. So that's showing YouTube that there's really low retention. So that one, and I would encourage anyone who's listened to this to watch it because I do think it's good. I think it did get a little bit buried. It still gets a few views a week now, but I think it should have done better. That's the Machine Shop on the Austin Vince event, available on my channel. But it's also like what I was saying earlier about what people find interesting. My most successful YouTube video by far is when I originally had the Tiger 900 Rally Pro. I did a comparison video between the new Tiger and my Tiger, explaining, I'm very emotionally attached to my Tiger. Here's what I think is better on this. And it's, without a doubt, the new Tiger is better. So I talk about the improvements on it. I think trying to really listen to customer feedback on that, but also my emotional attachment and also the things that I felt weren't really necessary or that weren't an improvement. And that video was done really well. And I personally don't find bike reviews that exciting, but people watch bike reviews and they love them. They do really well. And I don't want to be just a bike reviewer, but I think it's definitely worth it for my channel. Do a review of a bike every now and then, just because people will watch those videos. So what that means is I need to start doing bike reviews in a way that I find fun and engaging, and I enjoy making them, because essentially most bike reviews, it's subjective. You know, I'm 6'3" and 20 stone. The Tiger XCX is a great bike for me. For someone who's 5'4" and weighs 6 stone, they don't need that. Like the Interceptor from Royal Enfield, actually a great little bike, but I can't overtake anything on it because I'm too heavy for it. But for someone half my size, brilliant bike. So, and also it's completely different riding styles. Like, do you live in the city? Do you commute? So I don't think that you like. There are things that you can say that are objectively bad or good about bikes, but because they're so variable, it's like, you know, you wouldn't buy a tractor to go and tour around Europe in. It's not a practical vehicle for that. Like you have to think about what it is that you're buying. So yeah, I'm not super keen to push bike reviews so hard, but it's something that I will be going into. So yeah, finding a balance between what works and what you enjoy, because my whole thing about this is it shouldn't feel like a job. It shouldn't be a ball ache. I need to be enjoying it the whole time to make it worth my while. Because as I said earlier, I really don't earn any money doing this. Like, I earn enough to get by now. I've managed to, you know, I can keep fueling the bike and I can eat. But if I didn't live in a caravan, I would not be able to afford to do this. So yeah, it's like, it needs to be fun, and it is stressful at points, but whenever I find myself getting stressed and getting worried, I do sit back and think, you know what, realistically, I make a living by dicking about with motorbikes and trying to make people laugh, and that's something that a lot of people would really like to be in the position to be able to do. So yeah, it stays fun for that reason, even when it's not particularly fun in the moment.
Okay, Guy, just a couple of last questions. First of all, in terms of your own filmmaking, influences on your own filmmaking, who have you taken inspiration from? Who would you recommend others to watch?
So I think I'll have to answer that in two ways. Is like, first of all, for motorcycle films, I think without a doubt, I mean, everyone knows who he is. I've forgotten his actual second name now, but obviously Ryan F9 from the Fort 9 channel, who just, he makes art. He's incredible. I was actually very pleased, and it's quite a nice link to my next biggest influence, Austin Vince. So I worked with Austin at ABR this year after attending his events in Spain, and Ryan came by the stand while I was outside sort of promoting, and I sort of saw him and was like, and you know, I've done security in the music and film industry. I don't get starstruck that easily. Ryan has been a big influence of mine, so I was very pleased to meet him. I was like, hey man, I just want to say, I'm sure you're going to get this the whole weekend, but really nice to meet you. Really respect what you do. I'm sort of on a path to try and do something similar myself, and you've been a big influence on me. And we chatted for a bit, and he said, oh, do you know Austin? And I said, yes, I work with Austin, actually. And he goes, oh, I'm a really big fan. Can you introduce me? I was like, yeah, of course. So I got to introduce Ryan to Austin, which was it was a nice little moment for me. And Austin, who's just incredible. People my age and younger, I've discovered, don't really know who he is. And I think that's a crying shame, because he's one of the most fascinating human beings I've ever met. So my first meeting with Austin was, I was at the Lightweight Adventure Fest in 2024, and everyone, Clive from Tam Podcast and a few other friends of mine, and everyone I bumped into said, oh, there's this chap called Austin Vince doing a talk on the Saturday night. You have to come. You've got to see it. And I was like, all right, yeah, cool, we'll go see him. And I got there, and as I said earlier, I don't get starstruck. Within 10 minutes, I was like, this is the coolest man in the world. I have to be his friend. So he finished his talk. It was an absolutely brilliant talk. He was talking about crossing the Zilov Gap and being approached for consultancies on the long way round. I won't spoil anything of it, but if you see that Austin is doing a talk at an event that you're at, go. You will not regret it. So waiting for him to finish, and never really get nervous around people. And I went up to him and I was just like, hello, Mr. Vince. I really enjoyed your talk. And I didn't know who he was 2 hours ago. And now I'm just like, here, I'm worshipping the guy. And I started talking about who I was and what I do and explain why I was at the festival. And I mentioned Instagram, and at the time I was about 50,000 followers. And he just looked at me and went, how many followers did you say you had? And I was like, 50,000. And he grabs a copy of Mondo Enduro, his round the world film, and slaps it into my chest. And he goes, go and watch that and then tell people about it because it's a good film and not enough people know about it. And I was like, okay. And I sort of looked at it, I went, I don't have a DVD player. I don't think anyone else does now either. Well, find someone who's got one. I was like, oh, all right. And we sort of had a few interactions over the rest of the festival, but I didn't think much of it. And I was like, well, I'm probably not going to see this guy again. But it was really nice that I got to hang out with him for a bit. And then 2 months later, I got a message on Instagram and it just said, Guy, I want to phone you. I was like, oh, all right, Austin. I sent him my number, and 2 days later I got messages like, Guy, I'm about to phone you. And I was like, okay. And he phoned up and I was like, hey, Austin. He goes, right, okay, look, I'm not going to beat around the bush. You're very funny. I've seen a few of your videos, but you've got no idea how to make a film. And I know how to make films, and you're quite famous. So you're more famous than me, and I can make films. So I'll teach you how to make films so you make me famous. And I was like, all right. He goes, does that sound like a good deal? I was like, yeah, it sounds like a great deal, Austin. Like, I don't consider myself famous at all, but the fact that Austin thinks I am, wicked. And I was like, I said, yeah, it sounds good. He's like, all right, fair enough. You're my protege. Now you're going to come and learn filmmaking from me. And we went and hung out for a weekend where we watched some of his films and we watched scenes from his favorite films. We ended up discussing like some of the things that, so outside of Motorcycle World, the films that I found to be a great influence and what I really enjoyed. And we just got on really well, and I'm so happy to be working with him. I love his attitude. He's for someone who has done so much. He was being interviewed at another event that I was at recently, and someone said to him, how does it feel being Austin Vince, being this man who's done everything, who's worshipped by certain sectors of the motor? And he just turned around and was like, I'm just a member of the public. I'm a maths teacher who likes motorbikes. And he keeps that. He's very grounded. He doesn't look down on people. I'm obviously not saying that he should, but he's, for someone who has led as an impressive and cool a life as he has, he's a really grounded and decent human being. And I'm extremely grateful for the time that he's given me. My hope is that I'm going to get more people, in fact, I'll mention it now, especially a younger crowd, into his events in Spain. So I help promote Austin's trail riding events in Spain, which is just the coolest thing I've done on a motorbike. The Apprentice Vince, which is the starter session for the later competitive version. You can find links to it on my Instagram, but the short pitch is it's orienteering on dirt bikes in the Spanish mountains. It's 90% trail. You can be any level of experience when you start it. You'll get better while you're doing it. There's no phones. It's all paper maps, and it's absolutely wicked. You just go through the mountains, collecting checkpoints, and it's tremendous fun. What I really like about it is I'm not a big fan of tours. Because I feel you're being led around by the nose a bit, and the whole point of being on a bike is going and doing what you want to do. So you just choose what you want to do. You get up each day and you go off in your separate groups and you go and do your own thing and you have your own little adventures, and then you come back and you all trade stories at the end of the day. And there's so many. I'm sure a lot of your listeners go to the ABR. I don't want to knock anyone who wants to go on these events, but there's so many tour companies that market themselves as adventure tourism. And I don't think that's right, because adventure has to have an element of risk to it. If you jump on your bike with a pair of socks and just head north and try and work out what's going to happen, and you don't really have much of a plan, and things go wrong and you get wet and you're going to be wild camping, whatever adventure is to you, I don't think you can buy it. I don't think you can buy it in a package. So what Austin does is he sells you a skill set that you can then go and use to go and have your own adventure. And I think that's really cool. Like, you get taught skills, you get given a playground, and I don't know that there's anyone else quite doing it the way he does it. And I think he's a fascinating human, and I'm very, very happy to be associated with him. And as I said, his films, which is how I've learned by watching his films, are great because they are that more sort of gonzo style that I'm interested in, where Mondo Enduro is him and six mates riding around the world with a handheld Sony camera, just filming what happens and filming what they do and trying to form a narrative out of the chaos of what's actually going on. And there's huge jumps. And one of the things that I've learned from Austin is people don't know what you don't show them. So I always feel bad when I cut something out of a video because I know it's missing, but no one watching it knows. And there's a point in Mondo Enduro where they're in Japan and then the next thing they're in South America. And the whole of America's been skipped, and like nothing really much of any interest happens in America, clearly, or nothing that they felt was worth reporting to the rest of the world as part of their trip. But you don't get hung up on it. You're not like, whoa, what was happening there? Like, where did America go? It's like, no, obviously they went through America and now they're here. So yeah, I've learned an awful lot from Austin, and I'm sure I've still got a lot left to learn. But yeah, he's a good influence. And then like for filmmaking in general, I grew up watching a lot of very inappropriate films that I shouldn't have watched at a young age. Like my two favorite films, well, my three favorite films when I was young was Desperado, Robert Rodriguez. It's Antonio Banderas shooting up all of Mexico. Pulp Fiction and Full Metal Jacket. So I was about 8 or 9 when those were my three favorite films. I didn't understand half of what was going on in a lot of it. I look back now and I'm just like, Jesus, like I was a messed up kid. Like I always thought the Private Pile scene where he shot himself was hilarious when I was 9 years old. Like I didn't understand like quite what's going on. It's probably led to my slightly darker sense of humor as I've grown to be an adult. But yeah, I do little references in my videos now and then, and I want to sort of add more. So I like a lot of silly 80s and 90s action movies. I like a lot of the fantasy genre as well, like Princess Bride's one of my favorite films. And then for like dialogue and things, I forget the director right now, but one of my favorite films of all times is In Bruges. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely brilliant film, which is just purely held together by the dialogue, and it lets the audience be smart enough to insinuate what's going on by people making small references without over explaining things. I don't think there's a single wasted scene in that entire film, and I want to be able to tell stories that tightly, that concisely, and with that much respect for the audience, where you don't have to spoon feed them absolutely everything. I said this to Bob a while ago when we were talking about, because you have to obey a few rules when it comes to YouTube. There's things that might not make you so popular, and we were talking and we sort of said it's like film directors might not be the right analogy, but I use journalists, but you can use film directors. I said, look, we could be Dan Rather, who got watched by millions of Americans every night, who told them the news and did it in a sort of smart and sophisticated kind of way. Said, or you could be Hunter S. Thompson, who not everyone's super keen on, and not everyone knows who he is, but the people who know him bloody love him. And I think that's definitely the way that the machine shop is going. Is we're a little bit different. The motorcycle industry has become very, and I think every corporate industry, to be fair, everything's become very sanitized. And I'm not saying that every event has to have bikini girls and beer kegs. It could be a little bit naughtier. It's still a bit clinical at the moment. And I think the machine shop's going to make it a little bit naughtier.
Okay, Guy, what with all this content creation, short form, long form, I have to ask, does the filming enhance or diminish the pleasure of a motorcycle ride for you?
it doesn't really take it away. Every now and then there's something that happens because I don't have any camera mounts on my bike. Every now and then something happens where I'm like, oh, I wish that was on film. But for the most part, no. I try very hard to be conscious of having fun because if I said earlier, if it's not fun, there's no point in doing it. I enjoy making films. I enjoy filming things and putting together. If I take the bike somewhere and I want to film with it, I'll film it. What I haven't fallen into the trap of, as I said a minute ago, like every now and then you go, oh, I wish the camera was there for that. But if I go up and I'm riding off in Wales and I end up on top of a really nice hill or something, I just look around and I'm just like, well, this is beautiful. It's like, I don't need to make a video about this. I can enjoy this. Or if I'm just with friends, sometimes you might take a picture. But yeah, it hasn't really changed anything for me. Like, if I've gone out with the goal to make a film, I make a film. If I've gone out with the goal to have a nice ride, I have a nice ride. If I get to do both, even better.
Thanks so much for being my guest today, Guy. Now's your chance to tell folk where they can find and follow you online.
So it's I am Guy Markham on all socials. So that's where you'll find me, Instagram, YouTube. But the other places you'll find me is, obviously I mentioned the machine shop earlier. I'm a big part of that place and I would highly encourage everyone to go there. I think big things are happening over there. It's a very exciting time to be part of that shop. And I'm so grateful that Bob and I met 2 years ago. It's gone from fixing a couple of motorbikes together to me and him standing on stage last year at Motorcycle Live. We set a new world record last year, and then we got a crash bike and got an MOT standard in less than. Well, we did it in less than 20 minutes every day, but I think the quickest we did it was 11 minutes on the Saturday. Doing live shows, mechanical stunts. So yeah, come and see us wherever you see us performing live. And one thing as well is people always, I go to events and I get messages from people saying, oh, I was too nervous to come up and say hello. Come and say hello. The whole reason I get to do loads of cool shit with my life is because people watch my videos. I love meeting people that watch my videos. Even better, if you're wearing a shirt with my face on it, buy my merch. It's how I can eat. So yeah, if you go to my Instagram, there's a link in the bio, like all the usual content creator rubbish is in there, like all the affiliate links, everything I work with. I only recommend gear that I use, so there's discount codes and affiliate links in there. I do shirts and hoodies as well. And if you're new to hearing me on this podcast, head over to my YouTube, take a look at my films, and I'm really happy that Simon's had me on here, and hopefully make a few new friends out of it.
Super. Now, Guy, I have to ask, when do you expect to finish the film or the films, and where will people be able to see them?
You'll be able to see the Kurentovanje film on my YouTube, which is the I Am Guy Markham one. So it's a much smaller channel than the other film. Of the Making the Movie film will be on the Machine Shop channel. So keep an eye on both of them. Just head over and subscribe now. If you like bikes or cars, there's loads of content on, especially the Machine Shop channel, but on my channel as well, various things about bikes. Just head over there. And as I said earlier, I'm quite pleased with how things are going, but you only improve by doing them. So things are just going to keep getting better, I hope. And about mid-April, the films will be out, and hopefully people will enjoy them.
That sounds super. Thanks so much for being here. Take care and ride safe.
Well, ride safe and stay hydrated.